The plate shattered on the tiled kitchen floor with a sound that seemed to echo through my bones. For a moment I just stood there, frozen, staring at the fragments scattered like tiny shards of my dignity. "You are such a useless and shameless woman." Her voice sliced through the silence. My daughter-in-law's voice, shrill, merciless, dripping with contempt. She stood at the doorway in her silk robe, her blonde hair perfectly curled, coffee cup in hand as if she had been waiting for the chance to pounce. I wanted to bend down, gather the pieces, whisper an apology like I had done so many times before. But something inside me snapped. My hands trembled, not from age, not from weakness, but from the flood of humiliation that had finally grown too heavy to bear. That was the very moment I decided, I cannot stay here another day. But before I tell you what I did next, I need to tell you how I, a woman who once held my son in my arms, who once dreamed of gentle evenings and laughter in my old age, ended up as a maid in his house. My name is Margaret Wilson and I am 82 years old. I used to be a librarian in a small town in Pennsylvania, a quiet job that gave me joy because I loved books more than anything else. I raised my only son, Daniel, after my husband passed away when I was just 50. For 3 decades, Daniel was my pride, my reason for waking up every morning. I worked extra shifts, wore second-hand clothes and skipped meals so that he could have everything he needed. I never once imagined that the same boy would one day reduce me to cleaning his kitchen, scrubbing his floors, and being yelled at in my own twilight years. It didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, painful slide. The beginning of my downfall came when my modest savings dried up. Retirement hadn't been kind. Bills piled up, medical checkups, prescriptions, and the rising cost of simply being alive. I didn't want to be a burden, so I tried to keep working. For a while I managed small jobs here and there, sorting files at the local town hall, babysitting for neighbors, even folding clothes at the dry cleaner. But my body grew tired and eventually those jobs slipped through my fingers. That's when Daniel offered, "Mom, why don't you move in with us? You can help around the house. It'll save us money on housekeeping and you won't have to worry about rent or groceries." His words were coated in honey, but underneath I felt the sharpness. It wasn't an offer, it was a bargain. At first I told myself it was better than being alone. Their house was grand, 2 stories with gleaming marble floors and wide glass windows that caught the morning light. My daughter-in-law, Jessica, was always dressed as if the neighbors might be watching. Heels even in the kitchen, expensive perfumes clouding the hallways. I moved into the smallest room upstairs, a space they used to store old boxes and winter coats. Daniel carried in my single suitcase and said cheerfully, "This will be cozy, Mom." I told myself it was fine. After all, what did I need at my age except a bed and some peace? But peace never came. The helping out around the house quickly turned into working. I was up before dawn, scrubbing the counters, vacuuming the carpets, polishing the bathroom mirrors until my back ached. Jessica would stroll downstairs with her perfect nails and say, "Oh good, you already started." She never said thank you. Daniel would sit at the dining table scrolling on his phone, sipping the coffee I brewed. Sometimes he would glance at me and smile faintly, but he never told me to stop, never said, "Mom, sit down, let me take care of you." It was as if I had been hired, except there was no paycheck, only a roof and leftover scraps at dinner. The real sting came from their friends. One afternoon Jessica had her book club over. Women younger than her, sipping wine, laughing too loudly. I was told to serve them snacks. As I placed the tray on the coffee table, one of them whispered, "Is that the maid?" Jessica chuckled, swirling her glass. "Sort of. It's Daniel's mom. She likes to keep busy." They laughed. They laughed at me. I carried the empty plates back to the kitchen, my cheeks burning hotter than the oven behind me. In the silence I asked myself, when did I stop being his mother and become their servant? But I stayed. I stayed because I had nowhere else to go. Because part of me still hoped Daniel would wake up one morning, look at me and see the woman who once walked him to school, packed his lunches, sewed his Halloween costumes by hand. I thought love would win. But love, I learned, does not feed the ungrateful. The day of the broken plate was like any other. I had already done 3 loads of laundry, wiped down the windows, and mopped the foyer where Jessica's friends tracked in dirt from their heels. My hands were swollen from the water and chemicals. My knees creaked with every step. I was washing dishes when the plate slipped. My fingers, damp and trembling, just couldn't hold it. It smashed onto the tiles. And before I could breathe, before I could bend down, Jessica's voice lashed out like a whip. You are such a useless and shameless woman. The world seemed to spin. For decades I had swallowed insults, worked through exhaustion, endured loneliness. But hearing those words, spoken in my son's house, cut deeper than any wound I had ever known. I turned to look at Daniel. He was sitting on the couch watching. His mouth opened as if to speak, but he didn't. He didn't defend me. He didn't stop her. He just looked away. In that moment the truth crystallized. I was not a guest in their home. I was not even family anymore. I was their maid. And something in me broke alongside that plate. I straightened my back, wiped my hands on the apron and whispered to myself, no more. I would leave. That night or the next morning, I didn't know how or where I would go. But I knew one thing. I could not stay another day in a house where my worth was measured in chores and broken plates. What I didn't know then was that leaving their house would unravel secrets I had never imagined. And that decision to walk away was only the beginning. That night, as I quietly folded my clothes into my worn suitcase, I heard a faint knock on my door. My heart froze. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't Jessica. The voice outside whispered words that made my blood run cold. Mrs. Wilson, you don't know me, but I need to warn you. You're in danger here. I froze when I heard the whisper. The hallway outside my door was usually silent at night, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs. But now, in the stillness, there was someone standing there. Someone who knew my name. Mrs. Wilson, the voice repeated, low and urgent. Please, you can't stay here. You're in danger. My heart thudded so loud I thought Jessica might hear it from her bedroom. I didn't move. My hand hovered over the suitcase I had been quietly packing, my fingers trembling over the zipper. Who are you? I finally managed to whisper back. There was a pause. Then the voice said, it's better if you don't know right now. Just watch your back. And don't trust them. I knew immediately who he meant. Daniel and Jessica. By the time I opened the door, the hallway was empty. Whoever it was had disappeared like a shadow swallowed by darkness. I stood there, clutching the doorknob, my mind racing. Had I imagined it? Was my mind finally breaking from exhaustion and humiliation? Or was there really someone out there trying to warn me about my own family? I shut the door, bolted it, and leaned against it until my knees gave out. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the day. Jessica's cruel scream. Daniel's silence. The shattering plate. And now the stranger's warning. The more I thought about it, the more unsettled I became. Danger? What kind of danger could I possibly be in? I was already humiliated, treated like less than a maid. But danger? I shivered as the thought crept into my mind. Were they planning to get rid of me? Morning came and I forced myself into routine. Coffee brewing, eggs frying, toast in the toaster. I moved like a ghost through the kitchen, my body following the motions while my mind stayed stuck on the whisper. Jessica walked in, her silk robe trailing like she was floating above the ground. She glanced at the table and smirked. Good. At least you didn't burn the toast today. Her words stung, but I didn't answer. I had learned silence was safer. Daniel shuffled in behind her, his tie crooked, his eyes glued to his phone. He muttered, "Morning, Mom," without even looking up. I swallowed hard. My son. My only child. The boy I had once rocked to sleep while reading him bedtime stories. Now he was a stranger who treated me like hired help. As they left for the day, Jessica tossing her empty cup into the sink for me to clean, I made my decision. I would leave tonight. No more hesitating. I pulled out the little stash of money I had hidden under my mattress. Crumpled bills I'd saved from odd cleaning jobs around the neighborhood. Not much, maybe $200 in total, but enough for a bus ticket out of town. I didn't know where I would go. But anywhere had to be better than here. Still, the stranger's words wouldn't leave me. You're in danger. What did that mean? Was it just about Jessica's temper? Or something more? Later that afternoon, as I folded laundry in the sunroom, I overheard them. Jessica's voice, sharp but hushed. She's getting too old, Daniel. One accident and she'll be a liability. My breath caught. Daniel's reply came after a long pause. I know. But what do you want me to do? She's my mom. Your mom. Jessica hissed. She's a burden. She eats our food, takes up space, and embarrasses me in front of my friends. We need to do something before she ruins everything. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from gasping. Burden. That was what I had become. When their footsteps moved away, I sank into the couch, clutching a towel against my chest like it was a lifeline. That whisper last night hadn't been my imagination. Someone knew something and now I did too. They didn't want me here. Not just in their house. Maybe not even in this world. The evening dragged on in silence. My suitcase stayed hidden under the bed, half-packed. I didn't dare finish it while they were home. I washed the dishes, cleaned the counters, folded the last of the laundry. Jessica barely looked at me. Daniel smiled once, a weak smile that vanished as soon as she glanced his way. I felt invisible. And yet I felt watched. By midnight the house was still. Their bedroom door was shut, the faint sound of Jessica's laugh drifting through the wall as she watched television. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the suitcase. I could grab it and leave right now. Walk down the road, find the bus station and never look back. But just as I reached for it, there was another sound. A soft scrape at the window. I turned slowly. The curtain moved. And a hand, thin, pale, trembling, slid a folded piece of paper through the crack. I rushed to the window, pulled the note inside and unfolded it with shaking hands. The words were scrawled in messy ink. Leave tonight. Before it's too late. They already have a plan. My chest tightened as I read the note again and again. My son. My daughter-in-law. A plan. And in the stillness of the night, with the note burning in my hands, I realized. I wasn't just running away from humiliation anymore. I was running for my life. I sat frozen, the note trembling in my wrinkled hands. Leave tonight. Before it's too late. They already have a plan. The words burned into me like fire. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might wake Daniel and Jessica. My breath came in shallow bursts like I was trapped in a room with no air. Who wrote this? Who slipped it through my window? And what plan could my own son and his wife have against me? I folded the note quickly, slipped it under my pillow and sat there in the darkness. My mind screamed, leave now. Get out before they hurt you. But my body, it hesitated. Because as much as fear was urging me to run, a part of me still couldn't believe it. Daniel, my sweet boy who once kissed my hand after school, who used to beg me to read him just one more story before bed. Could he really be part of something so cruel? I wanted to deny it. But the voices I overheard earlier, Jessica calling me a burden, Daniel saying nothing to defend me, played again and again in my head. Oh, I couldn't ignore this anymore. I finished packing. Slowly, carefully, I zipped the old suitcase shut. The sound seemed deafening in the silence of the night. I waited, listening for footsteps, but the house stayed still. One more glance at the room. The cracked wallpaper, the little lamp on the nightstand, the narrow bed where I had spent so many nights swallowing tears. I wasn't going to miss it. I clutched the handle of the suitcase and tiptoed toward the door. My hand reached for the knob, cold and slick with sweat. But just as I turned it, I heard something. Whispers. Coming from downstairs. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. I thought they had gone to bed. Why were they awake at this hour? Careful not to make a sound, I pressed my ear to the crack of the door. Their voices floated up the staircase, faint but clear enough to make my blood run cold. Jessica's voice first, sharp and cruel. Tomorrow we'll make the call. She can't stay here any longer. I don't care if she's your mother. I'm done. Then Daniel's lower, hesitant. Just I don't know. It feels wrong. Wrong, she snapped. What's wrong is keeping her here. Do you want to get stuck with her medical bills when she falls and breaks her hip? Do you want her to drag us down with her debt? Think, Daniel. We can't afford this. You know what the lawyer said, if she signs it, it's done. I covered my mouth. My legs nearly gave out beneath me. Lawyer? Sign what? I crept back to the bed, my suitcase dragging silently behind me. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold on to it. They wanted me gone. Not just gone, they wanted me to sign something. Papers. Maybe the house deed I still co-owned. Maybe the little savings account Daniel had access to. Or maybe, something worse. The note's warning echoed in my head. They already have a plan. By morning I felt like I hadn't slept in years. My eyes burned, my body ached, but I forced myself to get up and act normal. I brewed the coffee, set out the breakfast, folded napkins the way Jessica liked them. Just another day as their unpaid maid. But inside my heart was a storm. Jessica sauntered into the kitchen, heels clicking against the floor. She glanced at me, then at Daniel, who was pouring orange juice. Don't forget, she said casually, We're meeting with the lawyer tomorrow. Right, Daniel? His eyes flickered toward me for just a second, then dropped to the glass in his hand. Yeah, he mumbled. Tomorrow. I felt my knees weaken. I gripped the counter to steady myself. That afternoon while they were out, I sat on the bed clutching the note. The words blurred through my tears. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. They did have a plan. And tomorrow, whatever it was, they meant to put it in motion. I thought of running again. Taking the suitcase, heading to the bus station, vanishing before they returned. But something held me back. What if I left too soon and they hunted me down? What if leaving meant signing away everything without a fight? And deep down, I'll admit it, there was a part of me that wanted to know the truth. To finally hear it from their own lips. So I stayed. That evening, Daniel came to my room. For the first time in weeks, he actually looked at me, not through me. Mom, he said quietly, closing the door behind him. Tomorrow we need to go somewhere together. Jess will come too. It's important. I forced a smile, my heart pounding. Where? He hesitated, his eyes darting to the floor. Just trust me. It's for your own good. For my own good. I had said those words to him countless times when he was a boy, when I made him eat his vegetables, when I scolded him for staying out too late. Now the same phrase spoken back to me felt like a death sentence. I nodded, pretending to agree. Of course, Daniel. For my own good. But inside, a single thought screamed, I need to find out what they're planning. Before it's too late. That night, after the house went dark, I crept to the window again. Hoping, praying that the mysterious stranger might return. And he did. A shadow stood beneath the tree, barely visible in the moonlight. When I opened the window a crack, he whispered up to me. They'll try to make you sign everything away tomorrow. Don't go with them. Please. Meet me at the bus station at noon instead. My breath caught. Who are you? I whispered. But he didn't answer. He only pressed a finger to his lips, then vanished into the night. I sank onto the bed, trembling, caught between terror and confusion. Tomorrow Daniel and Jessica expected me to go with them to a lawyer. But the stranger wanted me to escape to the bus station. One path led to betrayal. The other, maybe to salvation. And I had less than 24 hours to decide. The morning light crept into my room, soft and golden, but it felt like a spotlight on my secret. The note under my pillow. The stranger's warning. And Daniel's quiet words from the night before. Tomorrow we need to go somewhere together. It's for your own good. My heart beat fast as I dressed. My hands trembled so much I could barely button my blouse. I had less than 6 hours to decide. Do I follow my son and Jessica to this mysterious meeting with the lawyer? Or do I slip away, trust a stranger, and meet him at the bus station? Either way, I risked everything. Jessica floated into the kitchen like she always did, silk robe trailing, makeup already flawless as if she had woken from a photo shoot instead of a night's sleep. Good, she said, looking at me as though inspecting an old, dented chair. You're up. Remember, we're leaving at 11 sharp. Wear something decent. Her words dripped with disdain, but I forced a smile and nodded. Inside my chest squeezed. Leaving at 11. The stranger said noon. I'll have to choose. Daniel came in behind her, adjusting his tie. He didn't look me in the eyes. You ready, Mom? He asked softly as if trying to sound kind. I wanted to scream at him, ready for what? Ready to be betrayed by the son I gave my whole life to? But instead I murmured, almost. The morning passed in slow motion. I wiped the counters, polished the silverware, folded the laundry, all while watching the clock tick closer to 11. At 10:30 I went to my room and pulled out my suitcase from under the bed. My fingers traced the worn handle, my heart whispering, now. Now is the time. Leave before it's too late. But as I stood there, suitcase in hand, a knock sounded at the door. It was Daniel. Mom, he said gently, his voice muffled through the wood. Don't be nervous, okay? This is for your own good. Trust me. The boy I once knew, the one who hugged me with sticky fingers after eating ice cream, the one who cried into my shoulder the day his father died, his voice cracked through that door. And I froze. I couldn't run. Not yet. At 11 I climbed into the back seat of their sleek black car. Jessica sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone, barely sparing me a glance. Daniel drove, his hands gripping the wheel tighter than usual. We drove in silence. The trees blurred past the window, but my mind was louder than the hum of the engine. What if I'm making a mistake? What if I should have trusted the stranger? What if this ride is my last? After 20 minutes, we pulled up to a tall, glass-fronted office building downtown. Law Offices was etched in bold letters across the front. Jessica slipped on her sunglasses, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. Here we are. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood and stale coffee. We were led to a room with a long table where a man in a gray suit sat waiting. His smile was too wide, too practiced. "Mrs. Wilson," he said, rising to shake my hand. "It's such a pleasure to finally meet you. Please have a seat. We just need you to sign a few routine documents today. Nothing complicated." My chest tightened. Routine documents. Nothing complicated. That phrase was meant to soothe, but it felt like poison. I glanced at Daniel. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Jessica, however, smiled brightly, like a cat watching a mouse step into a trap. The lawyer slid a stack of papers toward me. "This is just to consolidate some assets," he said smoothly. Daniel and Jessica explained everything. "Once you sign, you'll be free of financial responsibility. They'll take care of everything from here." Take care of everything. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Words blurred, but I caught pieces. Transfer of ownership, authorization, full power of attorney. They weren't just asking me to sign papers. They were asking me to hand over my entire life. My savings, my property, my rights. Jessica leaned in, her perfume choking me. "It's fine, Margaret. Just sign. This is what's best for everyone." Her smile widened, but her eyes were cold. I looked at Daniel. "Is this true? Do you really want me to sign away everything?" He swallowed hard, his jaw tightening. "It's for your own good, Mom. You'll be taken care of." Taken care of. The same phrase whispered by mobsters in old crime films. My vision blurred with tears. The boy I raised, the man I trusted, was sitting across from me, nodding for me to give up my life's work to him and his wife. My pen hovered above the paper. My hand trembled. I thought of the note slipped through my window. "Leave tonight. Before it's too late." And suddenly I understood. This wasn't just betrayal. This was erasure. They wanted me gone. Not dead maybe, but erased. Powerless. Dependent. Forgotten. I whispered, my voice shaking. "I can't do this." Jessica's smile vanished. Her nails dug into the table as she hissed, "Don't be dramatic. Sign it, Margaret." The lawyer cleared his throat. "It's really in your best interest. If you refuse, things could become complicated." Complicated. Another word that meant danger. I dropped the pen and pushed the papers back. "No," I said louder this time, my voice breaking but firm. "I won't sign." The room went still. Jessica's face twisted with rage. Daniel's jaw clenched. The lawyer frowned, tapping his pen impatiently. And then Jessica spat the words that made my blood turn to ice. "Fine. If you won't sign willingly, we'll just have to make you." Her words echoed in the room like a death sentence. And as the lawyer slid the papers back toward me, his smile gone now, replaced with a cold, predatory stare, I realized. I wasn't sitting in a lawyer's office anymore. I was sitting in a trap. Jessica's words still rang in my ears like a slap. "If you won't sign willingly, we'll just have to make you." I sat frozen in the leather chair, my heart hammering against my chest. The stack of papers lay in front of me, the pen gleaming under the office lights like a weapon disguised as ink. The lawyer leaned forward, his smile gone. His voice was cool, detached. "Mrs. Wilson, resisting this will only cause unnecessary complications. Think of your son. Think of his future." I almost laughed. Think of his future? Hadn't I already given him my entire life? My youth, my energy, my health, all poured into raising Daniel alone after his father died. And now here I was 82 years old, cornered in a boardroom while my only child sat quietly beside his wife, watching me erase myself. I turned to Daniel, my voice trembling. "Son, is this what you really want for me?" His lips pressed into a thin line. He couldn't meet my eyes. "It's what's best, Mom. You'll be taken care of. You won't have to worry about anything anymore." Taken care of. The phrase was beginning to feel like a coffin lid slamming shut. I shook my head. My throat burned with unshed tears. "No. I won't do it." Jessica slammed her hand down on the table, making the pen jump. "You stubborn old woman. You don't know what's good for you. You're nothing but a useless burden and I am done pretending otherwise. Her voice cut into me deeper than any knife. But before I could respond, the office door opened. A woman stepped in. She was tall, with short brown hair and a navy skirt suit. She carried a stack of folders in one arm and a coffee in the other. She froze when she saw us. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize this room was in use." The lawyer stiffened. "We're in the middle of a private session, Miss Carter. Please." But she didn't leave. Her sharp eyes flicked to me, then to the papers in front of me, then back to Jessica and Daniel. And in that instant something passed across her face. Recognition. Disgust. Pity. "Mrs. Wilson," she said gently, setting her coffee down. "Are you all right?" It was the first kind voice I'd heard in months. My lips parted, but Jessica jumped in before I could speak. "She's fine," Jessica snapped. "This doesn't concern you." But the woman, Miss Carter, didn't back down. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing at the papers. Power of attorney transfer? Asset consolidation? At her age? Without independent counsel? This doesn't look right. The lawyer's jaw tightened. "Carter, this is none of your business. Leave." But she folded her arms, planting herself between me and the table. "Actually, it is my business. I work here. And I've seen enough cases to know when someone's being coerced." Coerced. The word cracked through the air like thunder. Jessica's face flushed red with fury. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his fists clenching on his knees. I gripped the arms of my chair, my heart racing. For the first time I felt a glimmer of something I thought I had lost long ago. Hope? "Please," I whispered to Miss Carter. "Help me." Jessica lunged forward, her voice dripping venom. "She's confused. She doesn't understand what she's signing. She's old. He forgets things. We're just trying to help her." Miss Carter turned to her slowly, her eyes blazing. "Funny," she said, her voice steady, "because she looks perfectly clear to me." The room exploded with tension. The lawyer tried to regain control, clearing his throat. "This isn't the place for arguments. Mrs. Wilson, if you refuse to sign, you may complicate your son's financial stability. Do you really want to do that to him?" I looked at Daniel. My son. My only family. His face was pale, sweat shining on his forehead. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I thought of all the nights I had stayed awake sewing his clothes, the mornings I skipped breakfast so he could eat, the years I spent making sure he never felt the absence of a father. And now he sat there letting strangers bully me into erasing myself. Tears filled my eyes, but this time they weren't from weakness. They were from anger. "No," I said, my voice breaking but fierce. "I will not sign." Jessica shot to her feet, her chair screeching across the floor. "You stupid, shameless woman. After everything we've done for you." Miss Carter stepped in front of her, her hand raised. "Enough. If you try to intimidate her again, I'll report this. And I promise you it won't just be a slap on the wrist." Jessica froze, her face twisting with hatred. The lawyer snapped his briefcase shut. "This meeting is over." His tone was sharp, annoyed. "Mrs. Wilson, you're making a mistake. Don't say I didn't warn you." He stormed out, muttering under his breath. The silence that followed was suffocating. Jessica stood there, shaking with rage, her fists clenched. Daniel sat slumped, his head in his hands. And I, an 82-year-old grandmother, sat trembling in a chair, my body weak but my spirit on fire. I had said no. For the first time in years I had said no. Miss Carter placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing," she whispered. But even as her words soothed me, Jessica's glare burned into my skin. And deep down I knew this fight wasn't over. That night back at the house the air was different. Heavy. Dangerous. Jessica didn't speak to me. She slammed doors, stomped through the halls, muttered under her breath. Daniel avoided me completely. I lay in my bed, clutching the note from the stranger, replaying Miss Carter's words. "You did the right thing." But the stranger's warning still echoed louder. "They already have a plan." And as the clock ticked past midnight, I heard the sound that froze my blood. Jessica whispering through the wall to Daniel. "If she won't sign, we'll just take care of it another way." I covered my mouth to stifle a gasp. Take care of it another way. And for the first time I realized, saying no might not just cost me my freedom. It might cost me my life. The words seeped through the wall like poison. "If she won't sign, we'll just take care of it another way." I lay in bed stiff as stone, every nerve in my body trembling. I didn't dare move. I didn't even dare breathe too loud. Jessica's voice was icy, calm, deliberate, the kind of voice you use when you've already made up your mind. Daniel mumbled something in response, but I couldn't make it out. His voice was lower, hesitant. Still, he didn't shout. He didn't argue. He didn't defend me. He just let her say it. And that silence told me everything. Sleep never came that night. My eyes stayed wide open, fixed on the ceiling while my mind spun in circles. Take care of it another way. What did that mean? Were they planning to throw me out on the street? Put me in some nursing home and throw away the key? Or was it something darker? The note from the stranger echoed in my head. Leave tonight. Before it's too late. I should have listened. When the sun finally rose, I dragged myself out of bed and forced my body into routine. Coffee, eggs, toast. My hands moved, but my mind was far away, trapped in that whispered threat. Jessica came down in her silk robe, sipping her coffee like a queen. She didn't look at me. Not once. Her silence was worse than her insults. Daniel followed, his tie crooked, his eyes avoiding mine. He muttered, "Morning, Mom," but his voice was thin, flat, lifeless. I looked at him carefully, searching for the boy I once knew, the boy who used to hug me tight, who used to call me his hero. But all I saw was a man chained to a woman's cruelty. That afternoon when they left the house, I finally allowed myself to move freely. I pulled out the note from under my pillow. I smoothed it flat with trembling hands, reading the words again and again. Leave tonight. Before it's too late. They already have a plan. The stranger had been right. Every warning he gave was unfolding before my eyes. But instead of running, something inside me hardened. I was tired of being scared. Tired of scrubbing floors, swallowing insults, pretending silence was protection. If Jessica thought she could erase me, she was wrong. I wasn't ready to die quietly in that house. The first thing I did was go through my belongings. Hidden inside an old photo album was a small key, the key to a safe deposit box at the local bank. Daniel didn't know about it. Jessica didn't either. Inside that box was the last piece of independence I had left. My husband's old life insurance payout, what little remained after years of scraping by. Not millions, but enough to give me choices. Enough to remind me that I wasn't powerless. I tucked the key into my bra and whispered to myself, if they try to take everything, they'll find I still have something they don't know about. Later that day the phone rang. I answered quickly, thinking it might be the stranger. But it was Miss Carter, the woman from the law office. "Mrs. Wilson," she said gently. "I hope I'm not intruding. I couldn't stop thinking about you after yesterday. Are you all right?" The kindness in her voice nearly broke me. My eyes filled with tears. "No," I whispered. "I'm not. They're planning something. I don't know what, but I think they want to get rid of me." There was silence on the other end, then her voice came steady and firm. "Listen to me. You don't sign anything. You don't go anywhere with them. And if you feel unsafe, you call me. I'll come." Her words were like a rope thrown to a drowning woman. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you." That evening Jessica cooked dinner, a rare event. She set the table with fine china, her movements too precise, too rehearsed. "Sit," she said sweetly, motioning me to a chair. "You've worked hard today. Let me serve you." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I sat slowly, my stomach twisting. Daniel sat across from me, his shoulders tense. He barely touched his food. Halfway through the meal, Jessica leaned forward, her voice honeyed. "Margaret, you must be so tired keeping up with this big house. Daniel and I were talking. Maybe it's time you consider moving somewhere easier. A facility perhaps. Somewhere safe. Somewhere that can take care of you. Take care of me." The phrase again. It crawled down my spine like ice. I set my fork down and met her gaze. For the first time I didn't look away. "No," I said firmly. "I'll take care of myself." Her smile cracked. Her eyes darkened. But she didn't argue. She only sat back, swirling her wine. Daniel dropped his fork and pushed his plate away. "I'm not hungry," he muttered, leaving the table. The silence that followed was suffocating. That night I made my choice. I would not wait for them to strike. I would not let Jessica dictate the terms of my life. I pulled my suitcase out again and slipped my belongings inside. This time it wasn't panic. It was preparation. But before I could zip it closed, I heard it. A noise outside my window. My heart leapt. I rushed to the curtain and pulled it back. The stranger was there. But this time I saw his face. He was an older man, maybe in his 60s, with graying hair and tired eyes. He looked up at me urgently and whispered, "They've moved faster than I thought. Tomorrow morning they're taking you to a nursing facility out of town. Once you're in, you'll never come out. Pack tonight. Meet me at the bus station at dawn." My chest tightened as I stared down at him. A nursing facility. Out of town. Permanent. I turned back to my suitcase, my hands trembling. For the first time, I wasn't just planning to leave. I was planning to escape. The night felt endless. I sat on the edge of my bed with my suitcase by my feet, the stranger's words echoing in my mind. "Tomorrow morning they're taking you to a nursing facility out of town. Once you're in, you'll never come out. Pack tonight. Meet me at the bus station at dawn." A nursing facility. Out of town. Permanent. Not a home, a prison disguised as one. My heart thudded in my chest as I zipped the suitcase shut, every sound seeming too loud, as if the house itself was listening. I looked around the room, this little box of faded wallpaper and second-hand furniture. I had scrubbed and polished every inch of this house for years, and yet it had never felt like mine. Now I was leaving it behind. Not out of choice but out of survival. At 4:30 a.m. the house was silent. Jessica and Daniel slept down the hall, their bedroom door closed. I slipped into my worn shoes, lifted the suitcase carefully and tiptoed toward the stairs. Every creak of the wooden floor beneath my feet made my stomach tighten. I moved slowly, pausing at each sound, my ears straining for movement upstairs. Downstairs the air smelled faintly of last night's dinner. I eased the front door open, the hinges groaning softly. My breath caught, but the house remained still. One step outside. The cool dawn air wrapped around me like freedom itself. I hurried down the street, my suitcase wheels rattling softly against the cracked pavement. The town was just beginning to wake. Paperboys tossing bundles onto porches, a jogger passing in the distance. My hands trembled as I clutched the note again in my pocket. The bus station. The freedom. With each step my hope grew. Maybe I could still reclaim what little life I had left. Maybe I could still escape Jessica's grip. The bus station came into view just as the horizon turned pink with sunrise. I saw him, the stranger, the man who had slipped me the notes. He was standing near the benches, scanning the crowd nervously. When he spotted me, his face lit with relief. "You made it," he whispered as I approached. "Good. We have to hurry, the bus leaves soon." I stopped, my chest heaving. "Who are you?" He glanced over his shoulder, then leaned closer. "My name's Henry. I used to know your husband. I promised him years ago that I'd look after you if anything ever happened. I didn't think I'd have to keep that promise this way." Tears filled my eyes. My husband. My late husband who died decades ago. Somehow, even from the grave, he had sent me help. I clutched Henry's hand. "Thank you," I whispered. But just as we turned toward the ticket counter, a sleek black car screeched to a halt outside the station. The doors burst open. Jessica stepped out first, her heels clicking against the pavement, her eyes blazing with fury. Daniel followed, his face pale, his jaw tight. "There she is." Jessica's voice rang through the station like a whip. "Mom, what are you doing? Running away in the middle of the night?" Heads turned. Commuters froze, watching the scene unfold. My breath caught in my throat. Jessica stormed forward, her face twisted with rage. "Do you have any idea what you're doing? You're humiliating us. Get in the car now." Daniel's eyes met mine for the briefest moment. There was guilt there, deep, heavy, but not enough to stop him from following her lead. Henry stepped in front of me, blocking them. His voice was calm but firm. "She doesn't belong to you. She's free to choose where she goes." Jessica laughed bitterly, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Free? Look at her. She can't survive on her own. She'll die out there. You're just some old fool meddling where you don't belong." My hands tightened on my suitcase. The entire bus station seemed to blur as people whispered, watching the confrontation. And for the first time I felt the eyes of strangers on me, not as a maid, not as a burden, but as a woman fighting for her life. "Mom," Daniel finally spoke, his voice breaking. "Please, just come with us. Don't make this harder." Harder. As if I was the one tearing my family apart. As if I was the problem. I lifted my chin, my voice trembling but loud enough for everyone to hear. No, Daniel. I won't go back with you. Not after what you and your wife have done to me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jessica's face flushed scarlet. You ungrateful witch, she screamed, lunging toward me. Henry shoved her back, his arms steady despite his age. Not another step. The bus driver called out, last boarding call for Philadelphia. My heart pounded. This was it, by chance. I grabbed my suitcase and started toward the bus. But just as I set one foot on the step, I heard Jessica's voice again, cold, venomous, final. If you get on that bus, Margaret, I swear, you'll never see Daniel again. He won't be your son anymore. I froze on the bus steps, my chest heaving, tears burning my eyes. Freedom was right in front of me. But behind me stood my only child, bound to a woman who hated me. I had to choose. My survival or the last fragile thread of motherhood I still clung to. And the bus door was closing. The bus door hissed like a giant exhaling, the driver already glancing at his watch. I stood frozen on the step, one foot on the bus, one foot still on the ground. My suitcase handle dug into my palm, my heart threatening to burst through my chest. Behind me, Jessica's voice rang sharp and poisonous. If you get on that bus, Margaret, you'll never see Daniel again. He won't be your son anymore. Her words sliced me open. Daniel. My boy. The only reason I had endured years of humiliation. The reason I hadn't walked away long ago. I turned my head just enough to see him. He stood a few feet behind Jessica, his hands shoved into his pockets, his face pale and tight. His eyes met mine for a fraction of a second, full of guilt, fear, and something else I couldn't name. But he said nothing. Nothing. Henry's hand pressed gently on my shoulder. Mrs. Wilson, please, he whispered urgently. This is your chance. Don't let her control you. Step on that bus. My chest heaved. The bus driver called out again, last call. I looked back at Jessica. Her smile was cruel, victorious. He thought she had me. She thought her threat was enough to chain me to her forever. But then I looked at Daniel again. My son. The boy I raised. The man he had become. And the truth hit me like a stone. I had already lost him. I lifted my chin, my voice trembling but clear. If a mother's love depends on slavery, Jessica, then maybe I don't need a son anymore. Gasps rippled through the bus station. Jessica's face twisted with rage. You. But I didn't wait to hear the rest. I lifted my suitcase, stepped fully onto the bus and looked at the driver. I'm going to Philadelphia. The doors hissed shut between me and them. For the first time in years I felt something bloom in my chest. Freedom. The bus pulled away from the station. I sank into a seat by the window, my hands trembling. Henry sat beside me, his tired eyes full of relief. You did it, he said softly. But my tears betrayed me. They rolled down my cheeks, hot and unrelenting. I pressed my palm against the glass, watching Daniel and Jessica shrink into the distance. Jessica was screaming, her arms flailing. Daniel just stood still watching me go. And I realized, I had chosen myself over him. The highway stretched before us, endless and unfamiliar. Henry explained quietly, there's a place you can stay in Philadelphia. A friend of mine runs a community center for seniors. You'll be safe there. Safe. The word felt like a dream. I closed my eyes, letting the hum of the bus soothe me. For the first time in so long I let myself believe I had escaped. But relief is fragile. Halfway through the ride, the bus driver's radio crackled. His brows furrowed as he listened. He glanced at me in the mirror, then shook his head. What's wrong? Henry asked. Police checkpoint ahead, the driver muttered. Unusual for this time of day. My stomach dropped. Sure enough, just a few miles later, the bus slowed as flashing lights came into view. Officers waved us over. One stepped onto the bus, his eyes scanning the passengers. Routine check, he announced. Need to confirm ID on a few individuals. He walked down the aisle, his gaze sharp. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would echo through the bus. Then his eyes landed on me. Name. I stammered. Margaret Wilson. He pulled a photo from his pocket. A grainy image but clear enough. My face. We've been asked to bring you back to your family, ma'am. They're worried about you. My blood ran cold. Jessica. She had called the police. She had spun a story, painted me as a confused old woman who had wandered off. Henry stood quickly. She's not missing. She's running for her life. The officer frowned. Sir, sit down. This isn't your concern. The bus was silent, every passenger staring. My chest tightened. I clutched the suitcase handle until my knuckles turned white. I'm not going back, I whispered, my voice breaking. I won't. The officer reached for my arm. Ma'am, you don't have a choice. I yanked my arm back, my whole body shaking. No. I cried, my voice louder than I thought possible. I will not go back to that house. The entire bus froze. The officer's grip tightened. And in that moment I realized, this wasn't just about running anymore. This was a battle for my very existence. The officer's hand clamped around my arm like a steel trap. Ma'am, you're coming with us, he said firmly. Your family reported you missing. They're worried about your safety. Missing? My voice cracked, my chest heaving. I'm not missing. I left because they're trying to lock me away. They want to steal everything I own. Gasps rippled through the bus. Passengers leaned closer, their eyes wide. But the officer shook his head. Ma'am, you sound confused. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Confused. The word burned. Jessica's poison had spread even here, painting me as senile, unreliable, disposable. Henry rose to his feet, his voice steady but fierce. She's not confused. She's being manipulated by her own son and his wife. They tried to force her into signing over her estate yesterday. I saw it with my own eyes. The officer frowned. Do you have proof of that? Henry's jaw tightened. Not yet. But I will. The bus was silent except for the hum of the engine and the officer's heavy breathing. I looked around desperately, my heart pounding. If I went with them now, I knew I wouldn't come back out. Jessica would have me locked away, tucked out of sight, erased. I couldn't let that happen. Listen to me, I pleaded, my voice shaking but loud enough for every passenger to hear. I'm not crazy. I worked my whole life for my son. I raised him alone. And now he and his wife want to take everything from me. They called me a maid. They screamed at me. They tried to force me to sign papers that would make me powerless. And when I refused, they said they'd take care of it another way. Tears burned down my cheeks. My hands trembled, but I didn't stop. I may be old. I may be tired. But I know the truth when I see it. And the truth is, my own son betrayed me. The officer hesitated. His grip loosened slightly. Murmurs rose among the passengers. A woman in the back called out, "She sounds clear to me." Another added, "Let her speak." The tide was turning. I could feel it. Henry seized the moment. "Officer, call the law office downtown. Carter and Wells. Ask for Miss Carter. She witnessed everything yesterday. She'll confirm that this woman is telling the truth." The officer's jaw tightened. He glanced between me, Henry, and the restless passengers. Finally, with a sigh, he pulled out his radio. "Dispatch, patch me through to Carter and Wells law offices. I need verification on a claim." My chest heaved. Every second felt like an eternity. 10 agonizing minutes later, the radio crackled. A voice came through, sharp and sure. "This is Miss Carter. Yes, I was present yesterday. Jessica and Daniel Wilson attempted to coerce their mother into signing over power of attorney. I stopped it. She is not missing. He is in danger. Do not return her to them." Relief crashed over me like a wave. My knees nearly buckled. The officer released my arm, his face dark with embarrassment. "Looks like there's been a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. As if my life hadn't been hanging by a thread. He turned to the driver. "Proceed with your route. Sorry for the delay." The bus erupted in murmurs again, some passengers clapping softly, others whispering about the scandal they had just witnessed. Henry helped me back into my seat, his hand warm and steady on mine. "You see," he whispered, "the truth has a way of breaking through." I nodded weakly. But deep down I knew Jessica wouldn't stop here. She had money. She had influence. And she had my son wrapped around her finger. If she couldn't silence me through lies, she would try something worse. When the bus finally reached Philadelphia, Henry guided me off. The city felt overwhelming. Tall buildings, endless noise, strangers rushing by. But in the chaos I felt safer than I had in years. We made our way to a modest brick building tucked between two larger towers. A faded sign read, "St. Matthew's Community Center." Inside, the smell of coffee and the sound of soft piano music greeted us. This is it, Henry said gently. My friend runs this place. You'll be safe here. I sank into a chair in the lobby, my body aching with exhaustion. For the first time in so long I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight alone. But just as I closed my eyes, letting myself breathe, the sound of a car screeching outside shattered the peace. I looked through the window and my blood froze. Jessica. She was standing on the curb, her heels clicking against the pavement, her face twisted with rage. Daniel trailed behind her, his eyes downcast. She had followed me. I gripped the arms of the chair as Jessica stormed toward the door, her voice sharp and furious. You thought you could run, Margaret? You thought you could humiliate me? This ends today. And as the door swung open, I realized my fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The door of the community center swung open so hard it banged against the wall. Jessica stormed inside, her heels striking the floor like hammer blows. Her eyes were wild, her lips pulled into a sharp snarl. Daniel followed a few steps behind, his shoulders hunched, his face pale. I rose slowly from my chair. My knees trembled, but I refused to let her see fear. Not anymore. You thought you could run from me? Jessica hissed, her voice slicing through the quiet room. You think you can make a fool of me? After everything I've done for you? I let out a bitter laugh. Everything you've done for me? You enslaved me in my own son's house. You screamed at me, humiliated me, tried to strip me of everything I owned. That's not help, Jessica. That's cruelty. Her face reddened with rage. She whirled on Daniel. Are you going to let her talk to me like that? Tell her, Daniel. Tell her she's wrong. Daniel's eyes flickered to mine. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I saw it. The boy I had raised. Guilt weighed on him like chains. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Jessica's lip curled. Coward, she spat. Henry stepped forward, planting himself between me and Jessica. His voice was calm but firm. You should leave. Right now. Before this gets worse. Jessica laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Worse? Oh, it's going to get worse. I called the police already. I told them she's mentally unstable, that she ran off without her medication. When they get here, they'll drag her back where she belongs. And then you'll all be sorry. My heart pounded. She was doubling down on her lies. But before I could respond, a voice rang out from the doorway behind her. Not if we get here first. We all turned. It was Miss Carter, the lawyer from yesterday. She strode into the room, flanked by two officers. The same one from the bus and another with a stern expression. Miss Carter's eyes locked on Jessica. I've already filed an injunction against your little scheme. I gave the police my statement, along with documentation of your coercion attempt. You won't be locking anyone away today. Jessica's face went pale. He stumbled back a step. That's a lie. She's old, confused. But Miss Carter cut her off. She's clear. She's capable. And she's the victim here. You're the one who should be worried. The officer stepped forward. Jessica Wilson, we need you to come with us. There are serious allegations against you regarding fraud, coercion, and elder abuse. Jessica's jaw dropped. What? You can't do this. Daniel, say something. Tell them. All eyes turned to Daniel. His face was ashen, his body trembling. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he let out a shaky breath. I can't, Jess. Her head snapped toward him. What do you mean you can't? He looked at me, his eyes glistening. She's right. You went too far. We both did. But you pushed it. I should have stopped you. I didn't. And I'm sorry, Mom. My chest tightened. The apology I had waited for so long. It came but too late, too small. Jessica shrieked, lunging at him. You useless man. After everything I gave you. The officers grabbed her, restraining her as she kicked and screamed. You'll regret this, Margaret. You'll regret the day you crossed me. Her voice echoed through the hall as they dragged her outside, her threats bouncing off the walls like broken glass. Silence settled in her wake. Daniel stood there, his shoulders sagging. He looked at me with tear-filled eyes. Mom, I don't know what to say. I let you down. I let her control me. And I let her hurt you. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I stared at him, my heart torn between love and disappointment. You're right, I whispered. You don't. Not yet. He flinched, his head dropping. But, I continued softly, you're still my son. And I'll always hope you find your way back to the man you were meant to be. That's all I can give you now." He nodded slowly, tears spilling down his cheeks. Then he turned and walked out, following the path Jessica had been dragged down, his figure shrinking until it was gone. I sank back into the chair, my body trembling. Miss Carter knelt beside me, her eyes kind. "It's over. You're safe now." Henry placed his hand gently over mine. "You're stronger than you know, Margaret." For the first time in years, I let myself believe it. Weeks later, I stood outside St. Matthew's Community Center, sunlight warming my face. The center had given me more than shelter. It had given me purpose. I helped in the library, read stories to children in the afternoons, even joined a knitting circle. I was no longer a maid. No longer a burden. I was Margaret Wilson, 82 years old, blonde hair still tied neatly in a bun, a woman who had fought to reclaim her dignity. As I looked out at the bustling street, I whispered to myself, "They tried to break me, but instead they reminded me that even at my age I still have a voice. And I will never let anyone silence it again."